What's up, people? I'm not I'm not gonna go into the whole thing of music and the whole I like going raw with my videos. I think the production in them and all of that is great. And we will be working on that kind of stuff, to get to you. I'm gonna try and position this camera a little better for y'all. Um But at any rate, I want to talk with you guys, give you a different angle too, as it pertains to house music and how things are here in Chicago. So let's talk about a little bit of raw truth here in Chicago. Um, I'm a Chicago house music veteran. I've been in the Chicago house music business um, since I was 15, 16 years old. Y'all guys got to forgive the studio. I'm in the process of revamping and moving stuff. I got stuff piled all over the place. That just shows you how raw I'm going right now. With the whole scene. I'm trying to watch my chat here on the side. So if you see me glancing off to the side, that's what it's all about. Let me see if I can give y'all a different view. Maybe hold on. I don't know. How's that for you guys? I hope that's better. But either way, some of the things that I want to get into about Chicago and the music scene, I want to debunk some myths and everything. The first thing is Chicago is the home of house music. That's the truth. Um, we've had a lot of great legends come out of Chicago. Um, art recording artists, stuff of that nature, DJs. Um, let's go to the beginning. You got Frankie Knuckles. Frankie Knuckles is probably one when you think about Chicago house music, Frankie Knuckles pops up as the godfather of house music and one of the legends in the game. I have nothing but love and respect for Frankie. Frankie pioneered a lot of things, a lot of trends. But the truth is, in my opinion, I think Ron Hardy, which is a forgotten about to a degree, legend in the game, and he's not spoke of that much. Ronnie, to me, was the true godfather of house music, and I'll tell you why. Ronnie catered to everybody. Ronnie catered to the rich. Ronnie catered to the poor. Ronnie catered to the gangbanger, the thug, the preppy, the yuppie, you know, whatever term you want to use, it was like come on, come off. You were in high school, you were in college. Ronnie was about beating that box, playing that music. Um, and he didn't really discriminate. Yes, he was a gay man, uh, but Ronnie could play. I mean, and truth be told, Ronnie played his best when he was high. But at the end of the day, a lot of guys were getting high back then on drugs and stuff like that. Because really, in the house scene, we weren't real big drinkers. We were juice bar people, juice, pop, stuff like that. We weren't really into the whole alcohol scene. That didn't come into much later in the game. So, I mean, as we came up, all our parties were juice bar type parties, but people were still smoking weed and acid and all this different stuff. Some people went heroin, whatever the case may be. Some of the gay clubs, using poppers and things like that. So that was kind of the scene. The warehouse, the playground were definitely two of the places where Frankie pioneered and got going. But the truth of it is, and I'm gonna just give you on my opinion. The truth of it is, Frankie only wanted to cater to the gay scene. his gay crowd and his mature gay crowd. He wanted a certain dress, he wanted a certain attitude and a certain type of people coming into his club, when he came to Chicago from New York. Um, if you watch a lot of our videos, man, and I got to give out this plug because you really need to watch these videos, is the Booth 312, DABOOTH 312 Chicago, the Booth 312 Chicago. I'm coming to you all today before I go into the radio station. It's 88.9 FM Chicago. It's a college station. It's WIIT radio, which is where a lot of hot house and dance music really is played on now, is on the college and internet stations. Um, so the real true underground stuff. I mean, you still have a few stations on XM like BPM, Diplo, Chill, stuff like that, but they don't really grab the essence of the root of Chicago house music. I think in my opinion they should mix it up a whole lot more. I love those stations. They're programmed in my car. I listen to them all the time. But I am kind of disappointed that there's not enough genuine mixture. They always push, house music, the real house music, but they never really play a lot of it, if any at all. It's more so the modern EDM, techno, blah blah blah, type stuff. But getting back to the point, um, when Robert Williams brought, Frankie to Chicago, that was some of his stipulations. And because of that, I think was, in my opinion, in the early and I should say in the later 70s, coming into the early 80s and 90s, stuff like that. Well, let's stay between 70 and 80. Let's say 78 to 85, 86. Let's stay in that range. That was when I felt, or I believe, the clicking off of groups, and the gradual divide started coming into Chicago, because you had people that followed Frankie and you had people that followed Ron Hardy. So you had these two different sects of people, um, that some were diehard Ronnie and they were like, oh, fuck Frankie. And some of them were very um, diehard Frankie and, the hell with Ronnie, because, it was a cliquish thing. It was a stats thing. And you had different promotional companies out here that were throwing a lot of different events in Chicago. And they also started to cause a divide later on. But the difference between then and now is some of these companies had a better respect for another promoter, because they were trying to get the maximum amount of money out of a gig or an event that they did. So they would typically say, well, let's say a Park Avenue was doing a big event, in Chicago on a Saturday night, on the 12th, then Gucci would say, okay, they doing this, we'll do ours next weekend, or we'll do ours the day before, or something like that. They never really too often went against each other, because they knew it was dividing up the money, it was dividing up the crowd, and it was just kind of an unspoken kind of respect, until the poster wars started and a lot of other things started happening. And what I mean by the poster wars, we used to have these posters that we would put up on the poles to promote our parties here in Chicago, and guys would come along and put their posters over it, or sometimes they would get caught tearing them down, and boom, the poster wars started. Um, and you can hear a lot about that, in the Truth About House Music. But that's why I was saying, if you follow the Booth 312 show, it's on YouTube. We do Facebook Live. To my knowledge, we're still doing it. It's on Tuned In Radio and stuff like that. But a lot of these guys have been on our show, and they've told the real stories of how they got into house music. The songs they made, when they made them, who they made them with. And it debunks a lot of these videos. It's tons of documentaries on YouTube talking about Chicago house music, and it's pretty much always the same guys talking about the same stuff in different areas or different locations, but pretty much it's always the same guys. And to me, it's not telling the whole story because there was a whole lot of other people out here that made house music and participated. You got to look at a situation. Let's talk about Jesse Records, Jesse Saunders. In some of the documentaries, they're saying that Jesse, was the one that came out with the very first house record in Chicago. And no, I wouldn't say that's true. I would say it's Larry Heard. Larry Heard is the true architect of that 4/4 time and rhythm and chords that really made house music what it is today. I would have to give it to Larry Heard. Chip Eberhart, was the first person to mention house music in his track. It's house. It's house. It's house. I'm not playing a lot of these songs because I want you guys to start researching. I need you guys to start reading. I need you guys to start looking at other videos and things like that, man. And we did a segment on the radio station for a whole year called The Truth About House Music. And I'm a little disappointed to a degree that it didn't get as many views as it should have, because a lot of these guys that are currently alive and are legends in house music and help create that sound told you their stories in that video and that whole series. We did a whole series for a year, and our series went from the 80s DJs and producers to the 90s DJ producers to where we are at present. And we asked everybody their stories, how they got into it, why they got into it, where were they when this happened. And these are the actual people telling what they did and how they did it and how they came about doing it. Is not coming from a secondhand person. It's not coming third, a fourth from somebody. It's not hearsay. It's coming from the actual people that did this. You got to look at people like Dajé, who did Brighter Days with Cashmere. Curtis McLean singing the house music anthem. He's the voice behind Marshall Jefferson's Gotta Have House Music. Telling his story. Keith Nunnally from JM Silk, Love Can't Turn Around, and all of these, Music is the Key. Different guys like this, man, that are telling their true stories about what happened. And it's a shame that these guys aren't millionaires. If you look and think about how many times Dajé's Brighter Days has been sampled and how many times it's being used in commercials, and this woman should be floating in money. Curtis McLean sings the house anthem of Chicago and the world. He is the man, and he's not a millionaire. I mean, so many guys are struggling out here, you know, um, and everybody's sampling their music, everybody's remixing their music, and nobody's seeing a dime. Now we got hip hop guys coming into Chicago currently in 2018 with crates and crates of house music, chopping it up and get ready to start sampling and putting it in rap music and stuff like this. And I'm not against the rap scene. I mean, we got guys like Tyree Cooper, that created, hip house. We had a lot of great producers that came out of Chicago that's still alive. Myself, Derek Smokin Jones, you got Mike Dunn, you got Maurice Joshua, Stacy Kidd, Corky Trackman Strong. Who else? I'm just trying to name people off the top of my head. Matthew Yates. It's so many talented guys, past Marshall Jefferson. He's still doing stuff. Um, I'm trying to think of everybody, man, and forgive me if I can't get everybody in. But it's so many guys, man, out here that's doing great things, man, that aren't, being acknowledged. Terry Hunter. He's another great producer and DJ out of Chicago. We got vocalists Curtis McLean, Dajay, Cherie Hicks, Sherelle Cherry Soul. Um, I can't think of all the great vocalists. Keith Nunnally. Um, I'm just trying to run through everybody that's still alive and still doing stuff. But you guys get what I'm saying. And Chicago claims house music because we did create it. But it's a thing where we help bring it to life with the culture of how we dressed, what we wore, the clubs we went to, and all of these things. But we really don't support it as we should financially. Chicago has become the scene here in Chicago has become very entitled financially, where a lot of house heads here, if you want to use that term, and yeah, we got to get into that term, house head, house music lovers, um, have gotten spoiled to the point where they don't like paying to come to parties and go to events. And and you really have to do something super super spectacular for them to really reach into their pockets to spend any money. It is divided because everybody has their favorite DJ, everybody has their favorite group of people that they hang out with. There are a lot of new DJs coming on the scene that play music just as good as the veterans, if not better, and people don't support them. They don't support their parties. They don't go out and show them love like they do for the veteran guys. And I'm not saying I'm a veteran guy, and I'm not saying that we as veteran DJs or producers should give anything or pass anything over per se to the youthful crowd, in a sense where if we're still eating and we still have to pay our bills, why would I give away everything on my plate to feed you and me and my family starve? And I think that's what a lot of the veteran guys are bumping heads with a lot of the newer guys, because newer guys say, hey, well, pass it down, pass it down. Well, if I'm still working, I can't pass it down. If I'm still out here producing, I can't pass it down to you right now because I'm still working. I can, the right thing for me to do would be to work with you. If you're doing something awesome in the game and it's recognizable and it's going to draw in numbers, then yeah, I should work with you. Let's work together. And I think that's a lot of the problem. You know, all is so many DJs in Chicago and worldwide. Everybody is chasing after the same biscuit or the same piece of the pie, and everybody feels like the pie is going to run out. Other people want to own the whole pie and want you to come to them, in order to get a piece of the pie. Then you got other people out there that, the little piece that they got, they don't want to, share it with anybody because they're afraid that if I open up and share it to somebody, I'll never eat again. And that's not the case. It's tons of money to be made out here in this music game, that we call house and dance music, man. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's flooded. That's why you have to get creative. You have to get creative. You have to be 2 and 3 steps ahead of the next man out here in order to make these monies and stuff like that. Um, I like coming to you guys raw, no bullshit, just straight up, not all the spectacular opening on the video and all of that, because this is me and you. And if you guys got questions, please, man, subscribe, comment, give me the thumbs up, give me the thumbs down, whatever you want to do, and tell me why. And I can even bring a lot of these people in the lab, or we can set it up somewhere where we can actually talk to a lot of these individuals that will tell you what's really going on in Chicago. A lot of people don't like talking about what's going on in Chicago because they feel like no, we don't want the world to think this about us or think that about us. It doesn't stop us from still being Sparta as it comes down to house music. It doesn't stop us from still being great DJs and great producers. But what it does show is that we have an unwillingness to work together. Um, and I think that's why hip hop has become so successful over the years, is because even in all the battling that went on back in the day with them, they figured out that the only way to break this game is to work together, unify, and start creating things together. So unified we stand, divided we fall. And guys in house music, especially here in Chicago, have not figured that out yet, because everybody wants to be king of the mountain. Everybody wants to be king dingaling, whether they male or female. You know, I want to be the best female DJ and veteran out here. I want to be the best, DJ producer out here. I want to be all that. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to be the best. But I believe it's how you go about doing it. Everything has a right and a wrong way to do it, and that's just an opinion. Some people feel like, hey man, I get what I can get as long as I can get it. I take what I can take as long as I can take it. And they have that 50 Cent get rich or die trying attitude. And then other people out here are more, let's be team players. Um it has created some very bitter DJs in Chicago. The modern technology helped a lot of guys to come out. Let's keep it real, because back in the 70s and the 80s, it was harder to get your name out there as a DJ, because one, there were a whole lot of clubs that were already locked down by veteran DJs. One, two, it was very expensive back then to buy a set of 1200s, a mixer and speakers and all of these things that you needed, amps and stuff. And everybody back then didn't have that kind of money. I mean, so a lot of guys were kind of pushed out the game because of finances. When the digital age came in, where you could buy a controller and decks and all that, even though they were expensive, it made it a lot easier. You could download MP3s versus going out to a record store, flipping through and buying a bunch of vinyl and spending your money cash like that. So, 99 cents versus $5 and $3 and $8 and $10 for EPs is a big difference. So, um, I think that's why we have such a great emergence of DJs now. And the fact that technology has made it easier for guys to DJ. I mean, you got systems that will beat match for you and edit on the fly for you, when all of those things that we did as veterans, we did on the fly. We did it right there. We didn't have anything to help us but our hand and eye coordination and our ears. And hopefully, our turntables and needles held up to the task of the things that we were doing. And it was a constant practice and every day of doing triples and quads on turntables and having slip disc pads up under your vinyl records and stuff like that, and weighing down the needles and balancing the tone arms. It was a whole another game back then. Um, but Chicago is still a beautiful place for music. It's still a beautiful place for DJs, but it's still very divided. I mean, you have the Latin community, they are more into what we would call the old commercial freestyle type of BMX house. They love the BMX house type stuff. The African Americans are more into the disco, tribal, soulful type sound here in Chicago. And then you have a Caucasian market that kind of bounces in between both. And then you have another segment of where you have the millennial age that's more into the newer house, the trap, the dubstep, the footwork, um, what you guys would call EDM, techno, tech house, stuff like that. And everybody has individual taste, and unfortunately, everybody bumps heads. It's hard to have an event here where you can have multi genres of music in one club, because then if you play tech house, the deep house people are going to sit down. You play deep house, some of the tech house and EDM people are going to sit down. If you play EDM, people in the tech house world don't want to hear it, so they're going to sit down. Nobody really jams and vibes. I mean, and again, I guess it comes down to personal taste. It's sad because for me, it's all just about the music. It's just about playing good music. You know, I went to events where I've heard jazz, blues, rock, pop, and was able to vibe in all of it because I'm a music lover. People ask me, how to get in the house, and I told the story on my last video, and you guys could check that out on my timeline. Was through a friend, Jeff Green, and he told me to listen to WBMX radio one day, and the mixes were on, and that's how I got into listening and loving house music. It was a love affair from the time I listened to it, and on. I was a I was a rock and roll kid, believe it or not. I was a huge Elvis fan. I love Kiss. I had posters of Kiss on my wall. My father would go bananas. He would see these posters. He's like, "Who are these?" And I was like, "Oh, Dad, it's Knights in Service of Satan. It's Kiss." You know, and he would be like, "Take that crap off the wall." He, my dad was straight Motown. So, I was listening to Pink Floyd, Jefferson's Oreo Speedwagon, Jefferson Starship. I mean, Journey. I was listening to all these things, and I really was not into the Motown age or the disco-y age or anything. I didn't really get exposed to it until maybe later in the 80s, and that was only because of house music and the fact that Ron Hardy also got me into it playing disco. Um, Ronnie passed, and that was very hard for me because Ronnie kind of mentored me the whole time we were at Chicago Track Records. And Ronnie was, trying to make extra money and do extra things outside of DJing and production. He was working at Chicago Track Records, in the distribution area, packing records and helping to get them shipped out and all of that. And I would sit with Ronnie because I was signed to Chicago Track Records then. And I would sit with Ronnie for hours and he would just tell me what to do, have a good ear, always play the hits, listen to your crowds, play from your heart. I mean, it was just so many things that he told me. Um, and when I got the call that he passed, that was I can't even express, and I think if he was alive today, the house music scene would be a whole lot different in Chicago. I really, really believe that. Um, and I think the reason why Frankie stands out a little bit more than Ronnie because he outlived Ronnie. He lived much, much, many years longer than Ronnie. And Frankie was one of the remaining deans or godfathers, if you will, of the house music scene that was left. We lost Armando. Armando was another great dean, and he passed. We lost Pink House. We lost so many in the game, and Frankie managed to outlive all of these guys. So naturally, he would be the most revered and the most loved because he stayed around the longest. So it's that kind of thing, out of sight, out of mind. But I believe if Ron Hardy was alive today, it would be a whole new scenario here in Chicago because Ronnie did not promote division. He didn't promote, the cliques. He was like, hey, come here and party your ass off. I don't care if you're rich, poor, black, white, gay, straight, Jew, Gentile, just like this track says, it don't make a difference in our house. Just come on and enjoy the music. We over a period of time, you have the older people that were some of the original culture are part of the development of their original culture of house music in Chicago, have an attitude where they feel like if you weren't partying at the warehouse, the underground, AKAs, the Vinci Man, or whatever, wherever, you know, then you're not a true house person. And then that caused the divide because then you started getting people that were newer into the house game. And I think part of the divide was too, a lot of the newer people wanted to belong and feel like they fit in with the older crowd, and they lied about going to the power plant or the warehouse or the playground or the cotton club, or heroes, or any of these clubs that we had in Chicago back in the day, because they just wanted to fit in, and a lot of them truthfully were not old enough to be in those clubs. And some of them that claim that they were in them clubs, okay, you were in that club at 6 7 years old, that's impossible. You're in that club at 12 13 14 years old, that's a little impossible. So that was another thing that also created a divide. And then of course the newer generation of house music started resenting the older generation of house music because they were calling them out on their bullshit. And then on the flip side, you had some older people in the game that just felt like they owned house music because they were there, and they were with Frankie, and they were with Ronnie, and they were at these clubs, and nobody knew it better than them. And that was it. And then you had that sect that only wanted to hear what house music was in the 80s, and they weren't really interested in how it is in 2000, because a lot of the older house music lovers feel like the newer music today is all noise, it's bullshit, and they don't want to hear it. And I love it. I mean, it's a lot of nice beats out there. I mean, what I don't like about the scene is there is a lot of sampling and re-editing of old hits. I wish guys would get more original with their music. You know, when I went out to the clubs, I wanted to hear the original music. I wanted to hear some new stuff, real creative stuff, and not a sample of somebody else's stuff that was already a hit. That just kind of irritates me. I don't mind having club versions of Motown classics or R&B classics. I mean, those are cool things to have, and they're also a great tool in as it pertains to bringing in more people that would otherwise not be house fans, for them to hear one of their favorite songs or tracks being played at a higher tempo with a harder 4/4 time, that nice punching foot and a hard bass line, or a nice flowing keys and chords. It draws them in like, hey, I never heard Lionel Richie play like that. Oh my God, that's Luther Vandross. How did y'all get it to sound like that? So it has its pluses and its minuses, but also in the marketing scheme of things, it helps to sell records. If you have multiple versions of your song, you have a techno version, you have a club version, you have an underground version, you have a deep house version, and you have all these different versions because you're trying to cater to every market, because we are in a digital world, and you feel like this is the only way I can make some money. And these labels and artists are trying to capitalize on this, as they should. We have Chicago has evolved in a way where we've just really started in the last couple of years really pushing the whole EDM tech house scene, where we're starting to have people in Chicago like Steve Akio or David Guetta or Dead Mouse, or I can't think of everybody off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but you guys know who you are. So now promoters are starting to bring these type of Miami, style parties to Chicago. Because that's the trend. They're going where the money is. That's where the money is right now. And then you have that battle of the true house people in Chicago that have their events, and what we mean by true house people, the original culture. So let's use that term, the original culture of house music, where they like playing more so their 80s, 70s, 80s, early 90s type music versus trying to listen to EDM, techno, footwork, and stuff like that. So now that sect is divided. And, that's another reason why I have the festival that I have, the Music Alliance Festival, is because I'm trying to work hard to bridge that gap, and just say, hey, it's all music, whether you are old head or new head or whatever the case may be. It's just all music. It's just good music. Come out and enjoy it. Um, so yeah, Chicago is going through a thing. The clubs are being taken away from us left and right, and that's primarily because, I mean, realistically, it's the color of our skin. Most of the people that frequent the clubs and stuff in Chicago are African American or Latin American, and you have sprinkles of Caucasian that love that culture and that scene, and they'll come out to those parties and events. But every time there's any type of incident in Chicago, a bad fight, a shooting up the street, or purse snatching, or what have you, immediately they shut down the clubs here. It's crazy. They find some reason. The alderman says, "Oh, it's a threat." And like I said in my last video, if somebody got robbed at a Walmart or shot in the Walmart parking lot, they don't shut down Walmart. You see what I'm saying? If you can shut down a club for the same thing, why can't you? I mean, if you can shut down a club, why can't you shut down the Walmart? Why don't you shut down Walmart? Of course, you're not going to shut down Walmart, but why you want to shut down our clubs? You know, so these are things. So now our club scene has gotten reduced to um, taverns, and lounges, and stuff like that. Where, and this is where how the house community in Chicago has gotten spoiled, because most taverns and lounges are not allowed to charge at the door for their patrons to come in. They don't have that kind of, they don't have an event license. They don't have a license that covers them, as that type of venue. So what ends up happening is a up and coming DJ or promoter that's trying to make a name for himself, or just trying to make it, ends up grabbing these lounges or halls or whatever to have an event that they can't legally charge for. So they then have free events, and what they do is they take the money off the bar. They try and push people to drink more so they can get a percentage off the bar. So the lounge owner makes money, and the promoter makes money too. There are some that sneak around and will charge $5 at the door, even though it's illegal to do it. They will do it. Some of them will sell drink tickets. Some of them will do pre-promotions where you come in with a ticket that you've already paid for in order to get into the club. And if you don't, or I shouldn't say club, in order to get into the lounge or tavern, and if you don't have that ticket where you show that you pay for it, then you can't come in. And it's just a loophole. That way, okay, if the police come, they can't see us really charging at the door because we didn't. But in order to get in our party today, we do reserve the right to let you in or not let you in if you don't have a ticket that you've pre-purchased somewhere else. So I mean, there's a lot of ways around it. So, but I mean, these are things that guys are doing, just trying to make it in Chicago because the club scene is just dropping. I've known guys that have opened brand new event centers or clubs and barely have made it 6 months to a year before they're shutting them down again. We're in a scene in Chicago where it's so oversaturated with house music and dance music to the point I think it's starting to wear people out. It's starting to drain you. It's starting to bring you down. Like, oh my God, if I hear about another house party, I'm gonna commit suicide. You know, and then you have those devout people that I don't care what's going on, they're gonna be there. They're gonna support. They're gonna party. They're gonna kick it. And but it's a small group of them. It's not a lot. The older community is just that. They're older. They're dying off. They got kids in college. They got mortgages. They got diabetes. They got high blood pressure. They got gout. You know, they got cancer, sickle cell, whatever the case may be. And they're just not getting out that much. And the only way they will come out is if it's something really big, like, man, this is kind of a once in a lifetime thing. The last three major events that I went to here in Chicago in 2018 were not producing the numbers that we're used to, you know, and that is because of all the above. So many events are going on at the same time. And on top of that, when you have so many things going on and you splitting the crowd, where you could have a whole bunch of people in one place. Now they're divided up into 10 and 20 different places. That's one reason. The other reason, financial. Other reason is some people are getting tired of being around a lot of big crowds, nowadays. And the only parties that are really jumping are the millennial parties because they have the expendable income, they have the time. A lot of them don't have children, and the ones that do have children, they pawn them off on their grandparents, their aunts, their uncles, or best friend who's not into the scene, and they go out and spend money and they party. So, that's the thing. And plus they're into more of the trendy music, not just the music, but they are into um the atmosphere, you know um they're into the show. What can you show me? What kind of cool activities are here? What things are going on outside of just the music? It's about the experience, you know. And a lot more promoters are getting creative in creating a better party experience, because it's a whole lot of guys out here and that can play music. When I say guys, I mean male and female. It's easy now to pretty much be a DJ and play music, um it's just the good DJs do certain things to make themselves stand out. The better DJs are more creative. The better DJs have a better gimmick, a better technique to draw people, But and then there's a lot of other people out there that are getting into the game that are very talented, but they don't have the opportunity for exposure as the other guys do. And that's also very sad. Living in Chicago and trying to make money in Chicago for a lot of us is very hard. Most of the guys make money and get booked more overseas: Germany, Japan, New York, the UK. All of these places are the place to go nowadays. So when you look at your very home, the home that influenced you, the home that made you fall in love with the sound, and it doesn't embrace you back, that's a very, very hard thing for a lot of guys. And it's a lot of guys out here hurt and bitter because of that. And that's why I think everybody is scratching and fighting so much, because yeah, we are, we have our good side, we have our good sides, and we have our bad sides like anybody else. And I know it happens in the UK. I know it happens in Miami. I know it happens in Atlanta. I know it happens in Baltimore and all these places because everybody wants to be the king of the party. But at the end of the day, these are the things that are happening in Chicago in house music. Um, I wish there was a greater support of the veterans that made the sound, and a better respect for us that helped dig and pioneer and toe the rope, if you will. It's sad to see so many talented people that did some tremendous things in house music broke, dead broke. Um, and I think that's also another reason why a lot of people are so bitter when they see the EDM and techno DJs and all this making hundreds of millions of dollars on music, and some of the music is the foundation of their songs. You know, some of the music are edits from their songs, and they're sitting around here trying to figure out how to pay a cell phone bill or a light bill, and these guys are getting rich, off of their sound. So you got to really understand the whole story, and a lot of people don't tell the real story. You have other people out there that are DJs and producers that plead the fifth because one, oh, we don't want to rock any boats. Two, oh, we don't want to look like we're bitching and complaining about anything. And three, they don't want to offend anybody that they feel might be able to elevate them later. So it's better if we just, it's kind of like the thing with African Americans, some African Americans in slavery, where if we don't say anything about it, then it'll all go away. If we don't, if we don't deal with it, then we won't have, the problems. If we help to silence those people that speak up and come against what's going on to us, then maybe they'll leave us alone and everything will be okay. And that is the dumbest bullshit in the world. That is so stupid. That is so stupid. If I'm being abused and I don't say I'm being abused, I'm going to continue to be fucking abused. So at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. And if you have people out there, if you're a coward and you're worried about your rep, or you're worried about the few little pennies that you're making and you don't want to say anything, and somebody else does and they speak up, and it will actually benefit you, but yet and still you're still scared and you want to quiet them down, okay, well, if you're scared to talk, at least let them talk. You're going to get some kind of benefit out of it. You have other people that will sit back and say, I wish somebody would say, or I wish somebody would do. And then when those people do it, they know they'll benefit from it, but they ain't going to say nothing. They'll be like, I ain't going to say nothing. But if you say it cool, and if something great comes out of it and I can get paid off of it, or it'll open the door for me, I'm with that. But I'm not going to be the front runner to run through the door. You're going to have to be. And then again, you have those that'll be like, oh, please don't say nothing. No, don't say nothing, because it'll be all bad, And I just don't believe that. I believe that if you're right and you're righteous and you're trying to be good, and you're doing things out the pureness and the goodness of your heart, and you have a strong belief and work ethic, and you truly believe in the things that you created, you should fight for them. You should stand behind them, and you should stand behind anybody else out there that's doing the same thing. Not cower, not worry about what somebody else is thinking about you, not worrying about, oh, I might burn the bridge with this one or that one. The truth is always the truth, and that's just the world. I mean, if you look at millionaires right now and billionaires, they've done so much dirt to get their wealth and all of these things, and everything's a hush hush secret. Don't say that. Don't bring that up. And if you bring that up, I'm going to bring this up about you. It's about what I got on you and what you got on me, and who I know and who you know and who you don't know. I mean, the world as a whole is fucked up, but there are still a whole lot of good fighters and good people out there, man. And I pray for you guys, and I encourage you, and I push you on, and I support you, in the fight, because we got to fight a good fight. We have to, not enough of us are fighting a good fight. And it doesn't always have to be a bitch session. It doesn't always have to be a yelling session, because sometimes how you project your anger, how you project what you're trying to deliver to other people, your delivery counts a lot. And if you deliver something the wrong way, it turns people off. Your message may be great and your delivery may be totally bad. So then that hurts in a situation where you could be delivering a lot of great information and people are shutting you down because of how you're giving it. So just be mindful of those things. And have a mutual respect even for your enemy. I mean, because your enemy teaches you things, your opposition shows you things. So you have to have respect. There's a snake out there in the grass. You have a respect for the snake because the snake can injure you. You don't like the snake. You're not for the snake, but you have to respect the snake and its environment and what it does. And from that, you can learn a lot from the snake. You understand what I'm saying? So these are the things that I think we should do as business professionals and stuff just in general. Understand your enemy. You don't have to like your enemy, but there's a balance. Life and death, good and evil, bad and good, whatever term you want to use. Um, there's a balance, and each side respects the other side for whatever it's worth, and that's how things move along. But I would definitely say speak up. But follow us on the Booth Show. DABOOTH 312. Follow us on the Booth Show, WIIT 88.9 FM Chicago. We talk about a lot of these things, and we play a lot of. We're one of the stations again that play everything: trap, house, underground, disco, 80s classics, from the house music era. We mix everything up because we just believe it's all about the music. Um, so definitely support us. Check us out on YouTube. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube when you see our shows pop up. And listen to some of the shows. Listen to some of these artists. Listen to some of these DJs and producers that have been on our show that will tell you the real deal and not the false deal. All these house documentaries that you guys are seeing, from the warehouse to Paradise Garage, the house, the Chicago built, all these different videos, they all have good information, but all of it is not totally valid. All of it is not totally true. And these guys come out and tell you the truth. You have other guys that do documentaries and videos and use Chicago and stuff of that nature in the house scene to promote what they are doing, and it's not so much about the history of house music. It's not so much about this, or it's about their history in it or what they believe they contributed in it, and they leave out a whole lot of people that helped them to get where they were going. Even myself, I didn't get where I am today by myself. It took me working with a lot of different people to help get me where I am, and all of them played a major role in that. You know, you got great producers out there like Steve Poindexter, which is one of the most underrated producers in Chicago, and he was also one of the pioneers that helped architect this whole house music scene. So when you think about all of that stuff, y'all, I mean, it's about love. But stay with us, like, please subscribe. I'm out of here. Got to get to the radio station. Peace.